Nice. Okay, everybody. Okay. FT here coming at you live with a surprise live stream. And so for those of you who are here thinking you are going to get a critique of Jason Unruhe and his ideas, you are mostly wrong. And if you clicked on this because you saw the title and you saw, oh, facts and logic, destruction with facts and logic, oh, I gotta watch this. Well, there is not going to be any destruction of Jason with facts and logic today. So you have been tricked by a clickbaity thumbnail. So, haha, you fell for it. But with that being said, I suggest that you stick around because I actually do have some interesting commentary that I would like to add on to Jason's analysis. And that's the point of this video, because Jason said some interesting things in his Prove Me Wrong video that I wanted to provide a little bit of analysis of my own on. All right, so there will be no destruction with facts and logic of Jason, more so the subjects of his criticism in his video, because I've been working on a very lengthy essay about radical liberalism all week long, and it's long as hell. I've been refining it, perfecting it, and it's probably going to be out at some point this week. And some of the things he said were very interesting. And so yeah, now that I have your attention, let's go ahead and go full screen. This is not going to be a very long stream. All right, cool. Sorry, false advertising. You fell for it. Haha.
How does one even do this?
Can you guys hear this?
I don't know how to express this or how to say it, or maybe.
Like, just want to make sure you guys can hear me, right? Yes, no, maybe. All right, well, fuck it, whatever. I hope you guys can hear it anyways.
Maybe I've already said it more than once. I've already made this statement before, and at this point I'm just preaching to the choir and whining to myself. Do people realize that people like Vosh, the serfs, ContraPoints, and other various forms of cancer, you realize you prove third worldism right when you exist. The whole point of third worldism is that the quote-unquote masses of the first world are unwilling to engage in revolution. And there's a great deal of argumentation as to why that is the case. But we're going to put that aside for now. And that
So this is something that S4A and myself were talking about over the phone not too long ago. But in general, a general problem that there is that the American working masses are extremely backward. They are extremely backward and not advanced at all. Class consciousness is fucking dead in this country, all right? There's a great deal of alienation. There's a great deal of social problems and rising issues, like with the fentanyl crisis and so on. Like, there's a lot of issues that you could link to the for-profit structure of our society. In fact, I think if you look at the 400,000, 500,000 people dead from COVID, you could use that as a great agitating point for why we need single-payer healthcare, because that's 500,000 people that would probably still be alive right now if we did a proper lockdown and we had a national healthcare plan. So, but anyways, yeah, no, the American people are incredibly backwards and so complicit in their own suffering that Jason has actually said in a recent video that Americans want to be exploited. I don't think it's that Americans want to be exploited. It's that people's lives are extremely alienating and they're so estranged from themselves and their fellow Americans, and they're so trapped in the rat race of trying to make a life for themselves that they already have all their own personal problems. The last thing they want to think about is the systematic problems that are pertaining to them in the first place. People tend to want to block those things out. And I attribute a lot to alienation. And it's just very interesting because if you go back in time, once upon a time, about 90 years, Americans were way more advanced than they are now. I'm talking leagues more advanced, light years more advanced in terms of class consciousness. There was more revolutionary potential in the 1930s in this country than at any point in America's history. Well, besides the Revolutionary War, that is. But Yeah, and there's a reason for that. And a lot of it comes down to decades of propaganda. I mean, decades. Like, the ruling class have manufactured a culture of of very bourgeois minded people. It's the mindset of the temporarily embarrassed millionaire that, oh yeah, if I work hard enough, if I'm lucky enough, I too can be exponentially disproportionately more rich than everybody else. You know, even though there's no scientific evidence that that me being that wealthy will make me any more happy than if I just had 70 to 80K a year, you know? And mind you, being that wealthy is obviously at the expense of your neighbors, because you don't get rich working hard. You get rich getting others to work hard for you. So I think that's a very interesting point. One thing I don't like about orthodox third worldism is really just how mechanical its analysis is. Like, if you go back in time, it holds up, but it doesn't hold up as much today. And I think there's going to come a point when the first and third world, or living conditions between the two, start to blend and they start to fade, because the developing world will inevitably catch up on industrially, and then the things will just continue to deteriorate in the first world as the ruling class comes back home to turn up the rates of exploitation on its own domestic populace. So there's a hint of mechanicalness to it that I don't really like. But otherwise, when you look at other Marxian theories, they still hold up. Like imperialism, it's dated, but it still holds up to an extent. I mean, the labor theory of value holds up. I mean, a lot of like what's included within the Marxist tradition holds up. And third worldism is a little mechanical to me, and I think that's the only thing I don't really like about it. But all in all, I agree with the premise of it. People in the first world are too pampered and in order to do revolution. And I think it's not just the pamperedness, but it's also a level of cultural hegemony and capitalist realism, as well as postmodernism, that just has a complete gridlock on the psyche of people in the first world. But anyways,
always choose liberal reform over actually doing revolution.
I mean, it's always going to be like that, though. People want to take the path to least resistance. Naturally, they want to take the path to least resistance when it comes to improving their lives. All right. People want to take the path of least resistance when it comes to improving their lives. People in general, as a rule of thumb, are cowards when it comes to their own lives, especially Americans. Americans, tell you what, man, we may be the home of the free, but we're sure as shit ain't the land of the brave. Are you kidding me? But yeah, I mean, then that's just natural, though. People want to do as little work as possible to get, to where they want to be. It's just, there is a left in America, and it's growing, but it is a synthetic left. It is a left that is very much in the box and very much in lockstep with the hegemony of the status quo, as we will talk more about here in a moment.
And that instead, resistance should be sought in the first world. These people that I just mentioned, they are that capitulation to the system. They are that.
Don't mind
Every
me.
time one of these
Just speeding it up a bit.
nardos tells you to vote blue no matter who, Biden has the working class's best interest in his heart or mind or whatever nonsense it's going to be. You prove me right. You prove the LLCO right. You prove every other third world is right. And yet the arrogance persists. No, first world people will do it. First world people will do it.
You know what the problem with America is? There's still a fucking middle class. The middle class needs to go. Honestly, the sooner the middle class goes the way of the dinosaur here in the next couple generations, the better, because we'll actually have a mass populist proletarian base. I mean, we have a growing proletarian base now within the lumpen in the countryside, as well as the service worker. But I'm talking like a full-on proletarian base, because honestly, the middle class just acts as a base of mass populist support for ruling class hegemony, as well as ruling class policy, because they overwhelmingly vote and support Republicans and Democrats, more specifically boomers. In all seriousness, the boomers just need to die off. I'm not saying that I'm in favor of all of the boomers just dying off so that we can get more progressive politicians around. I'm just saying it would be very convenient if boomers weren't such a massive voting demographic that held such massive sway in the United States. But then again, even if they didn't, the ruling class would just find other ways to maintain hegemony and manipulate the general populace into voting and supporting causes and interests that are against their own best interest.
Revolution, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it any day now. And no, you're not. You're only deluding yourself at this point. Tell me why anybody should believe that any of these people have any kind of revolutionary mindset. It don't even have to be revolutionary. It'll be a revolutionary mindset. These people haven't even gotten past the point where you realize that bourgeois democracy is no democracy at all.
The rad libs don't advocate for revolution, though. I mean, none of them do. The debate bros, none of them do. They're pretty fairly open in being reformists. I think Vosh himself is like, oh, I don't advocate for revolution in the first world, because he sees it as an exercise in futility. There's a lot of backwardness. There's still a lot of ruling class hegemony until the philosophical foundations of our society are broken and destroyed, until ruling class hegemony is shattered and a new counter hegemony can form of some kind, like a kind of counterculture, one that's able to root out and expel the establishment's attempts to co-opt it and then rein it into its hegemony, the better, because that is, as far as I can tell, the main problem. Like, so when I look at the ecological struggles, when I look at the mental health struggles, when I look at the trans struggles, the struggles of indigenous people and African Americans, when I look at these struggles, I just see struggles that don't pertain directly to class that can be co-opted directly by the ruling class and just completely neutered of its bite, basically. And until we're basically able to take these issues and we're able to purge it of the ruling class, like, infectious touch, then no real change is going to be able to really happen. I mean, there's a reason why they create these murals, the Black Lives Matter murals, and you see Apple flying and sponsoring LGBT marches and waving the LGBT flag. It's co-opting. They are integrating what is otherwise radically progressive politics into its hegemony and status quo. They're basically eating it, and they're able to do this even with anti-capitalism itself. I mean, they've got T-shirts with fucking Vladimir Lenin's face and flags with Che Guevara's face over there. My sister bought that for me for Christmas a couple of years ago. So it's just an example of what I'm talking about. It's commodification in its highest form, and until we learn to tackle that, then nothing's going to change.
They can't even get past reform and revolution. They can't even actually get to Marx, where he explains why bourgeois parliamentarianism doesn't work. Their political thought is literally stuck in the 1840s in this regard. The Democratic Party has always made promises that they don't keep. I remember seeing this through Obama. One time Obama said, oh yeah, I think there should be a redistribution of wealth in society. I think that the wealth divide is too great. And then every freaking loser Marxist jumped on it. Oh, look, see, he is a Marxist. He is a comrade. Well, it's going to make things a little bit better. I mean, it's better than this, Oh, he's going to give us the universal health care too. And it doesn't happen.
The Democrats have been promising people universal health care for decades, man. Like, you've had politicians like Jesse Jackson and that of the likes that have been promising a single health care plan to American workers since the 1940s. Excuse me. This is a junkie stream, but anyways. I mean, that's what politicians do. They make promises, and then they don't keep them. And it's our job to point this out. It's just, unfortunately, we don't have a platform to do that. And the most radical people who do have a platform are the people that are going to denounce us and disavow us, as the crazy tankies and so on. I mean, isn't that funny how that works? The very people that claim to be radically left-wing and radically politically left turn out to be the very people that are now part of the very system that we seek to destroy, the likes of Vosh and Zanderhal. And it's just such an insane mindfuck. It's such an insane but brilliant mindfuck how the ruling class has been able to achieve such a level of social engineering, and capitalism has become so good at reproducing itself that the beacons of anti-capitalism that are now rising through the ranks and shining are literally commodified resistance.
Not long after Obama was elected, he supported the workers on strike at a place called Republic Windows and Doors. You can Google that one. Basically, Republic Windows and Doors, I mean, literally, how many decades or centuries do they have to do it? I mean, if you don't, it is not as though people don't know the Democrats are full of it and are not going to help. They're not left. They know it. Bosch knows it. Destiny knows it. Well, Destiny knows it because he gets paid. But they still continue to support them, knowing that it's not going to help. And do you know why they do it? Because, well,
they're liberals. That's the reason why they do it. But in all seriousness, yeah, no, Jason's got a point. Most people know that the politics do not serve them. If you talk to any worker, any person that's like part of the proletariat in the United States, and I'm not talking the middle class, all right? I'm talking proletariats, people that, actual proletariats, like American proletariat. The American proletariats live in paycheck to paycheck. He's renting out an apartment complex, sharing it with 2 to 3 of his roommates, all right? The American proletariat only makes between 12 and 18 bucks an hour, all right? That's the American proletariat. It's the American service worker, all right? The low-skilled service worker who's fresh out of high school or fresh out of college and is underemployed and can't find a job in his field of study, all right? That is the American proletariat right there. And they know that the Democrats don't serve them, the Republicans don't serve them, and they know that the whole system's bullshit and that it doesn't serve them. And I know this because I've talked to these people in where I work. I've talked and I've confronted enough of them to know this. And they instinctually, because of their instinctual entrenched, because it's deep down, they do have a kernel of class consciousness, just a kernel. They realize the system's bullshit, but things aren't bad enough to where they want to come out. They've been taught their whole lives and conditioned their whole lives, and they're so alienated from everyone around them that they don't know to get organized. Instead, they decide they're going to keep their head low, they're just going to ignore it, and they're just going to live their lives and live the best lives that they can, all right? One time, this was with a coworker, and he was one of the trainers at my job. I explained to him the dynamic between wage labor and capital and how he's being exploited. And he's like, oh, wow, this is really pissing me off. And I'm like, yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? And then he's like, yeah, you're just reminding me of why I don't pay attention to politics, because all it does is piss me off. And see, they want to stick their head back in the holes. No one wants to rock the boat. And until we're able to pull people out of that mindset and really shatter this, I mean, really what we're talking about is an insurmountable task. We are talking about undoing literal decades of social engineering and brainwashing and environmental conditioning that has rendered people to this point. And sometimes I just think the accelerationist in me just kind of thinks, just let it all go to shit, just let everything collapse. The collapse of America and our unsustainable city infrastructure that is centered strictly around automobiles and non-sustainable fuel sources, all the single-use plastics, all the on-the-spot delivery, everything that is being geared from our infrastructure to our political economy to the way that we live our daily lives is all centered around squeezing as much profits as humanly possible out of everybody from the bottom to the top. We've structured everything like that in such a sufficient way and such an efficient way that sometimes I just think it all just needs to go to shit. It just all needs to collapse, It just all needs to fall apart, and then it just needs to break down so we can start anew, But hey, that's just the accelerationist in me, I guess.
Aside from Destiny literally admitting to being paid by the Democratic Party to be a complete shill.
Destiny's a paid shill. Get fucked, Radlibs. Get fucked.
Anti-revolutionary shill, COINTELPRO. The reason they do it is because the only other alternative is to actually be revolutionary, which they're not going to do.
Yeah, why should they? They're mid-income liberals of the Bernie Sanders type. They're like modern day Kautskyites. They're modern day Bernsteinians. Like Vosch is literally a modern day Kautskyite. He bastardizes Marxist literature and theory and basically converts Marx and Engels through his vulgarization through their quotes into common liberals that would have voted for the Democrats, you know? What a fucking sophist. What a fucking snake, dude. I swear to God. If I woke up and I found out on the news that Vosch had a heart attack, I'm not saying I'd celebrate his death, but I probably would end up cracking a cold one. Just saying.
The same problem occurred with Andrew Yang. Yeah, but if we vote Andrew Yang, we get the UBI. And I said, yeah, and then you'll never do a revolution. Well, it'd be nice not to have to live in poverty. It'd be nice for you to do revolution when you say you're going to do it. I mean, if you're a liberal and you support a UBI, I understand. But to stand there as a Marxist and advocate a UBI instead of doing revolution, I mean, you're literally admitting that you're not a communist.
So the universal basic income is a patch on a massive fucking gashing axe wound. The issue is that because machines are involved ever more in production, and because only human labor is the only thing that creates value, and because machines cannot purchase the products that are produced by machines, you have a shrinking pool of value that can be exploited ever so more and more. And Marx talks about this through the falling rate of profit, mechanization, and automation. Eventually, that's the reason why we're in the service economy now. Now, it's no longer about creating the value, it's about realizing the value. And the goal of the service worker is to realize created value, what little value is left. And that's the reason why we have speculative value as well on the stock market. You have all these like hands that are involved in the stock market that are all basically gambling on and itching or panhandling just for tiny little slivers of profit. That's where we're at. Capitalism really is on its death throes, if you think about it. And the fact that they just have to print trillions of dollars every decade and pay themselves over and over again is the testimony to this fact that they just keep kicking the can down the road. And every time they do this, the general populace gets fleeced. And it's only a matter of time before people wake up and smell the con. But what I will say about UBI is that it's a patch. That's all it is. It's a patch, and there's a lot wrong with it. For one, it's going to tax the middle class into oblivion. Like, it's going to insurmountably raise taxes on the working class, because how else are you going to fucking pay for it? That's not going to come out of the richest pockets. If anything, they'll use the magic money printer. And if they do that, oh, you're making a huge mistake now, because value doesn't come from money. Money is an abstraction from value, and printing money does not create value. So all you're doing is you're basically paying people to live with this magic money that you're printing. And mind you, this trick only works because of the petrodollar, because America has, you know, the petrodollar, and the dollar is always in demand, and the dollar is always traded with. That's like the main force by which America exerts its economic will globally. So you're pumping out all these dollars, and what you're going to see is eventually there is a hard threshold. You can only do this so much before you get run off inflation and a massive inflationary spiral. So what's going to happen is, it's not like your landlord doesn't know you're getting that money from the government. Everybody knows. So your landlord's going to raise rent proportionally, and not just your rent is going to inflate, but prices of everything is going to inflate. All right? And not only that, but Republicans are going to use it as an excuse to gut what little social safety nets are left and what little public services, human services are left. They're going to use it to gut the VA. They're going to use it to gut Social Security. They're going to use it to gut whatever little social democratic policies that we have left. But it's okay, because you're going to get your $1,000 per month. $1,000 per month. That is a much easier. That's exploitation that they can tap into substantially easier than if you were to just go to the VA and get something you actually need. That's basically the idea. So what leftists should be advocating for instead of a UBI, well-meaning that leftist advocating for it might be, an alternative to that is higher wages, shorter work weeks. Higher wages, shorter work weeks. If you really want to know what you can do that actually will, like a policy that will actually resonate with people and people actually are going to agree with, is going to be shorter work weeks, better pay for shorter work weeks, cutting the average work week to 30 to 20 hours. This is an important reform that I think is very effective and should be agitated for now, here in the now. It's something that people actually would resonate with, is what I'm trying to say. And I mean, you could definitely do this, and I think it's important. I think Spain is experimenting with it. They're getting ready to cut their work week down to 30 hours and have the overtime threshold moved to 30. And a lot of Nordic countries and a lot of advanced countries are experimenting with shorter work weeks. And with the shorter work weeks, obviously involves more playtime. It's going to increase innovation. It's going to reduce social alienation, because people will get alienated from working all the fucking time. There's a lot of benefits that can come with it. And yeah, maybe we can't get revolution. So I understand the value in struggling for reform. All right. And I think that pushing for shorter work weeks and more pay is a way better alternative to the UBI for the reasons noted. And the other being that, capitalists don't decide the prices of their products per se. All right. They don't decide what the prices of their products are. So there's less potential for hyperinflation with my proposed policy, because you still have workers that are still working and producing value, rather than just having massive reserves of people that are just lumpenized, just living on $1,000 a month, that you're basically paying not to starve to death, or you'd have rioting and flames in the streets.
Communists don't believe in a fucking UBI. We believe in those who can do labor, should do labor, to produce before society has an obligation to work. Now, we're not talking imagination future with, Caleb Maupin, like 200 years down the line when science develops to the point of magic. I'm talking about real life, right here, right now. But that seems to be the one uniting thread for first world people. It's to not have to work. I want the UBI so I don't have to work. I want the Caleb Maupin, we all live as billionaires, imaginary bullshit.
And it's an understandable sentiment. It's not that people don't want to work, all right? People want to work. It's just they want to do work that actually pertains to their individuality, that actually pertains to who they are and their skill set and what they're interested in. Not, sitting behind a store counter, doing people's change and helping people buy shit. All right. People would rather do stuff that they actually want to do than work in a warehouse all night. It's all I'm trying to say. So it's an understandable sentiment. It's just, you need to tool the sentiment and agitate for the right policy. And I don't think the policy forward is UBI. All right. As for Caleb Maupin, well, that's a different rabbit hole that I'm not going to go down tonight.
Shit, so we don't have to work. I want the fully automated gay space luxury communism because I don't want to have to work. That's not what Marxism is about. It's not about not having to work.
I mean, Jason's right in a sense here, and I think there might be a little bit of a misunderstanding, but what I'm trying to say is, or what Jason's trying to say is, it's basically changing labor from being drudgery to its opposite. Instead of being something you do to survive, you live to work, basically. It's just work that you do that pertains to who you are. So humanity is free to do what they want to do, learn an instrument, learn how to sculpt out of clay, paint a painting, ride a motorcycle really fast, lift weights, discover a new branch of mathematics, build a time machine. People are free to do whatever they want to do instead of what they have to do. So I understand where Jason's coming from. The anti-worker sentiment, I do agree, is kind of dumb. I mean, we should be pro-work. We should be pro-work. It's just the work that we have to do should be retooling our economy so that people's needs are met in the most efficient way possible, while minimizing environmental impact, so that people are free to live life the way they want to. The problem with automation and the modern society and all the technology we have in industry isn't the fact that it exists. It's the fact that it exists under the context of capitalism. And until it's retooled and the social relations are changed, that is not about to change. And that is something that I think here in the now is something we should be really stressing and focusing on.
Mark, the goal of Marxism isn't necessarily to alleviate all forms of labor. That's a nice goal to have in the future. But did you forget the part where you're supposed to build a new world? But they're so bloody preoccupied with looking at ways to not have to do anything, to not have to work, and then at the same time support an ideology, or that's supposed to be communist, but keeps advocating not doing revolution. You understand that this is the goddamn point that we have been trying to make, third worldists. That this is the point that I have been trying to make for years. That people don't want. But these so-called Twitch communists, they can't even get past the part where you stop realizing bourgeois democracy isn't a democracy. They can't even get that part right. Because they're not just grifters. They're not just shills.
So here's the thing. I would be more friendly and more smitten towards electoralism if I was in a parliamentary country, all right? But the way electoralism is tooled here in the United States, it's through a presidential system, which is known for being notoriously, autocratic and subverting of the general popular will of the people. You see, here in the United States, barring the judicial and legislative branches and the term limits of the president, there's really not a lot in the way of America basically being a full-on Bonapartic dictatorship, all right? And you've got so many barriers that are erected that are in the way of any sort of populist candidate. I mean, just look at the way they treat Bernie Sanders, let alone the way they treat third parties. You have the Electoral College. Okay, so let me get this straight. You don't vote for your candidate. Instead, you vote for a person who's going to vote on your behalf, but it's a winner-take-all situation where the colleges vote, and basically whoever has the most colleges win, not whoever has the most voters. So it's set up in a way to where you could hypothetically have one candidate that wins the popular vote, but the other candidate takes the electoral college. And so they win by default, which is massively anti-democratic. Then you have the superdelegates of the Democratic Party. You have the fact that third-party candidates need to raise tremendous money to get the ad revenue that they need to get their names out there. And the fact that in order for them to get federal funding, they need to receive 5 to 10% of the vote. They need to have 15% popularity to even be on the Republican and Democratic debate stage. And even if by some miracle they even get that, then the RNC and DNC will be like, oh, did we say 15% support? Actually, no, you need 20% support. So they're just going to move the goalpost to exclude them anyways. This system is a two-party duopoly that is very exclusionary of third parties. So they're not going to win, just from the top down. At least within a parliamentary system, you can have at least one party that's pro-labor, one party that genuinely is the compromise between labor and capital. So I would say, within the context of a parliamentary system, I mean, bourgeois parliamentarism, or within a parliamentary system, you can at least get some reform done. You can at least get some concessions, and you can at least, to some degree, count on labor having a fighting chance and not just getting screwed over and over again. We have no such advantage in the United States, which is why I'm at a point to where I don't even really think electoralism as a strategy is really worth it. As I've said before, the masses are not there. They're not with electoralism, all right? Speaking as a member of the masses, all right? People are off just trying to live life. They're not concerned with politics because they already know instinctually that the system doesn't serve them. So how about, rather than going to these people and trying to proselytize about Bernie Sanders, how about you go to them directly and try and teach them that in order for them to get power, they have to take their power. They can't just elect a candidate to serve power for them. People have to take their power. So that's the reason why I advocate for the kind of strategy that I do, which is around ballot initiatives and around issues themselves and coalitions themselves, as well as organization outside of the context of the whole system, especially the Democratic Party. A grand exodus needs to be made from the Democrats. Oh my God.
With the Democratic Party and whatnot. They are first worldism. And the arrogance of first world people to continually claim, yeah, we're going to do the revolution, we can totally do it, as our socialism argued to me in that debate. But they don't do it. They will not go out and do it. They're not going to do it. Black nationalism has a far better chance of accomplishing anything. And even listening to some people look at the riot that took place on the Capitol at the beginning of the year, saying, see, the masses aren't alienated by violence. Oh, maybe they're not. But that wasn't us.
No, that was the middle class. All these people are the kinds of people that have the resources to take off work because they're paid for it and fly down to Capitol Hill with a bunch of other magatards and magachuds and basically riot for a couple hours and then go home. The cops aren't going to stop them. Cops let them in. Like, seriously, the status quo does not take right-wing violence seriously at all. Like, none whatsoever. I'm telling you right now, if a bunch of radical left-wing BLM Antifa people showed up at the Capitol and tried to do the same thing, they would be met with tear gas and rubber bullets. In fact, I wouldn't put it past these motherfuckers to use live rounds on the crowd. If it was a left-wing protest, if it was left-wing violence, they're going to bring live ammunition if they went to try and do anything like this. But because it's right-wingers and right-wing ideology and right-wing resistance and populism is so homogenous with the current status quo, they just don't take it seriously.
That was them. That was reactionaries. That wasn't us proving proof of it. Wasn't proof of concept of, oh yeah, first of all, people were willing to do a revolution. You realize what they were doing was the fucking opposite, right? They were literally trying to install a fascist dictator.
They weren't even trying to do that. Like, really, that was just them taking a bunch of pictures and going home. If they were trying to install a fascist dictator, they sure did a piss poor job at it. They showed up, they rioted, and then they came back the next day, they rioted and stormed the building again, and then they all went home. And then they all got arrested afterwards because none of them wear masks. That's what you get for not wearing masks. They're all like, "Oh, you stupid leftists! You're retards for not wearing masks, for wearing masks to go to a protest." None of them wear masks, and they all immediately go to jail. Get fucked, righties.
All you proved is that reactionaries are violent. Yeah, well, no shit. Thanks for the fucking goddamn memo. But in the end, no matter how much I or anyone else points this out, it amounts to nothing. Only the people who already know this are going to acknowledge it. And others, the ones that don't acknowledge this, they're just going to ignore it. First world people. Yeah, that's how that works. And you make it pretty damn hard not to be honest. What does it take to make you realize that you're not a revolutionary? I'm not a revolutionary. Of course not. I'd never be so fucking arrogant as to declare that, like some people.
Well, yeah, you actually need to be doing revolution to be revolutionary. I mean, I could go out and do it. Any of us could. It's just, you're going to be dead. They're just going to come and kill you. Like, people don't realize if someone were to pull a Lenin or a Stalin or a Che Guevara here in the now, the feds are just going to come down on you like the banhammer of God. Like, the feds will find you and kill you very fucking quickly unless you practice amazing operational security and you're off the grid. Like, to be a revolutionary in the United States, you would have to have resources and you'd have to have people doing it. But really, any sort of hardcore revolutionary activity in America, anything short of trying to organize demonstrations and strikes and protests and so on, and just do basic propaganda. Anybody that's trying to go out there and shoot cops or blow up government buildings, honestly, it's just adventurous, and I don't really see it as getting us anywhere, because in order for that sort of stuff to be effective, I mean, well, one, you need people that actually want to do it, and two, you actually need the public to be sympathetic to that violence. And at this point, they would be not sympathetic to it. So, like I said, you got to meet masses where they are. You can't just wage people's war when there's no people that want to wage war with you.
As I'm so oft to remind myself and many others, I'm just a guy on the internet, and that is a position that I have always held. I have never held that I am anything more than that, because I would never have the arrogance or the ego to say that I'm anything more than that. But in the end, what does it matter? I'm only telling you something that you already know.
Yeah, so that's it. So I honestly just wanted to talk about that, or mainly just give my thoughts, shed insights of my own, because this is kind of going with what I was talking about, or what I was doing last week with 100 Signs, mainly just trying to go out there and make a difference on my own. And for those of you who did send me pictures of your signs, Keep in touch with me. I'm going to try and get in touch with all of you guys because I actually have something planned special as a follow-up exclusively for those of you who did follow through with this 100 Signs campaign. Let me know, by the way, if you'd like to do something like that in the future, because I had a lot of fun with that. One thing that I have in mind that I don't really want to talk about too much is organizing some demonstrations around single payer. A march for healthcare for sorts. Now, there were these big BLM protests and so on. I participated in a BLM protest of roughly 6,000 people one time. So I'm wondering, with the fact that we have 500,000 dead from COVID and all the ammunition we have to advocate for single payer, why don't we focus on direct action around specific issues, from single payer to what I said with higher wages, shorter work weeks, and let's throw some anti-imperialism in there while we're at it. Here we go. 3 issues that impact most Americans on a regular basis that we all can agree on. This is something that we can actually do left unity on, all right? Because my stance on left unity is simply that the differences between me and a common anarchist are not great enough to where we can't agree to work towards these 3 common goals, you know? And we should come together and collaborate on these 3 common goals. And so us collaborating on these goals, putting pressure on the politicians from above to implement these policies, rather than just voting for politicians that say that they'll do it. Let's put pressure on the politicians above to do it, from the bottom to the top. It's change has never come from the top to the bottom, comrades. It has always been from the bottom to the top. All right. So for the future of this channel, I do have more direct action planned. I do have more actions, but we're going to keep it small for now. We're going to keep our activities small. And I'm going to try and get more of you guys recruited and involved in this stuff. And don't worry, it's all going to be straight legal stuff, all right? Nothing illegal. I'm not going to tell you guys to blow up a government building or assassinate the president or whatever. I'm just talking about putting up signs, handing out leaflets, and voicing your concerns on your social media. As a concerned citizen, you know, you can put it up on your Facebook or your TikTok or whatever other social media that you utilize on a regular basis. And the goal is just to act as an extension of our will. And our will is to bring change for the better. And as I've said, this is how we're going to differentiate ourselves from BreadTube. So I think that's really all I have to say about that for now. I hope you guys have enjoyed this talk. So yeah, had a brain fart there. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to my Discord. I'll go ahead and leave a link to my Discord. Actually, I'll post a link to my Discord in the chat right now. I'll go ahead and post that link, and if you guys want to hang out on Discord after this, I mean, I'm more than down. I mean, I ain't got shit going on tonight, so I'm going to be on Discord for the next hour, so, you know. Waiting for Discord to open. Waiting for Discord to open. Ah, here we go. All right, cool. You all ready for this invite? This invite will probably expire within the next 7 days, I think. So, let's do this. Here. Get in here, motherfuckers. Come on, get in, goddammit. Get in. Get in. I'm going to post it a few more times. Spam the link to the Discord in the chat. Copy and paste this. Come on, meet me in Discord. Let's fucking chill, guys. Let's chill for a little bit and let's brainstorm. We are the vanguard, all right? We are the vanguard. We are complete. We are a complete vanguard centered around the principles of democratic centralism. All right? So, anyways, get in this Discord, all right? Get in this Discord. I gotta wonder, why aren't you in this Discord yet, guys? Come on, get in the Discord. Get in the Discord. Get in the people square. And I will meet you guys in the people square. Come on, let's chill. Anyways, I'm ending the broadcast. Okay, peace out, bye.